Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the panel. It's interesting to see some of the perspectives, and we can learn from this. But I'd like to address my questions primarily to Mr. Puglisi.
Puglisi, yes.
Puglisi. And speaking for the administration in Scotland, John Kerry said there that the United States should eliminate the use of coal by 2030, period. And he reinforced how other fossil fuels, oil, gas, would be eliminated by 2035. And as you point out in your testimony, that's going to result in an expedited shift to renewables in the next few years. We can do the count till 2030, and that's going to require large quantities of critical minerals. But the U.S. still imports the vast majority of its mineral needs for renewables, and it is entirely reliant on foreign nations for some of them that I talked about in my opening statement. So do you believe that America will be able to supply itself the critical minerals needed by 2030 and by 2035?
No one who
If you use your mic, please.
no one who understands how we do permitting, how we go through the development, the NEPA reviews, believes that that's even possible. It's just not going to happen. And in fact, I think the biggest, if you look, the biggest concern we have with the power sector is if you push it too fast, it's going to become very brittle. It's going to become brittle because the fuels we use are going to be much more narrow, and we're going to be also subject to more complex systems which are subject to failure modes that we don't even fully understand yet.
Thank you. The administration has been focused on this need to increase the domestic supply chain, and I think we've had a good dialogue. We understand the need for that to be addressed for renewables. But that, as I pointed out in my, that's going to require a significant increase in domestic mining, processing, and manufacturing. And we know that China right now is the lead nation that processes the bulk of these renewables. And then they ship them around the country, around the world. And we said before, the U.S. is going to need to meet the demand. We're going to need to 500 to 1,000% more minerals than we have today. So do you believe that the current permitting process will allow the United States to increase its domestic processing of critical minerals?
You can bet that's not going to happen. You don't, I mean, it's, we have the process. Look, you just look at the scale problems that we face. We've been working on wind and solar for 30 or 40 years. And we've had grandiose plans. But as I pointed out, deploying it is something else. It still only represents 4% of primary energy.
Then why isn't Congress and the administration, why aren't they listening to you? If it can't happen, seriously,
actually,
so we get out of this politics and just the reality. I'm a civil engineer. I'm a licensed civil engineer. I deal in facts. I don't understand why we're letting emotion get into this rather than the facts that you're pointing out. We just simply can't get there now. And that was why I was making in my opening remarks saying, give us time. We're going to get there. But I'd like to have this the use of fossil fuels to bridge until we can get those things taken care of. But in the meantime, we're dealing with this. And then there's the last question I'd like to ask is having to do with the critical minerals again. What are the labor and environmental benefits if we process these critical minerals in the United States as compared to what they're doing in China and elsewhere? Because we've been concerned about environmental justice, and I've understood some of the components of that. But what are we doing now? If we bring this back home, are we going to improve, and it should hopefully increase the environmental benefits by producing them here? Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Clearly, we have an enormous number of environmental standards that all industry has to adhere to. So from a global point of view, it will be produced in a much cleaner, responsible way. But it also is going to require a scale. I think we really don't appreciate the scale of the problem before us. People talk about Denmark. There are 5 million people in Denmark. There are 300 million people in Indonesia, and they all want an air conditioner. and they don't want to spend a lot of money for their power. So the real dilemma for us is we have to let our technology mature so that it's cost effective, so that the American consumers don't see escalating costs as we try to wrench the system before the technology is ready to be deployed.
Mr. Pugliese, I can't agree with you more. Thank you for testifying here, and I yield back my time.